So, yeah.
Good. I love being able to record for you guys. I think it's just so much nicer.
I actually like sat down and took time to watch the whole thing.
That's awesome.
I don't know. Usually when I miss class, I'm like, oh, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I'm really glad. So today, just to review for this video that is recording, we are going to, we're gonna put a texture on this dress and maybe talk about other design boards really quick. So I'm going to select around this. You guys can take your time and do this really precisely, but I just wanted to introduce another tool actually. We can try using the magnetic lasso tool. So we've gone over the lasso tool and the polygonal lasso tool many times, but the magnetic lasso tool will kind of stick to the edge of stuff. I don't know if this is going to be kind of like a drastic enough edge for it to follow, but so I just clicked once and now I'm kind of doing my best to follow the edge and I'm not clicking at all and it's trying its best. This isn't perfect. And I like don't actually use this frequently because I find it to be more frustrating. Like, see, it's gone off into space here.
That's what I hate about it.
Yeah. So you can kind of like click to help it along, but it's not liking this moment. So, yeah, so it really doesn't like this area. But we can always like switch back to the other tool after we're done selecting this. Oh my God. I'll just do around her first and we'll take out the background. Although that's not exactly necessary. It'll make selecting stuff easier later. So it's doing okay on this side of the dress. All right. So I'm going to switch back to my polygonal lasso tool and just hold shift, right? And I get this plus symbol next to it. And I can select the rest of her, anything I missed. I don't have to keep holding shift. I just have to hold shift at the beginning. And then I come back around and make that little loop. And there we go. We've added that to selection. I can take this part out by holding, I always have to figure it out, Alt. One of those other buttons down there, and I get this minus sign. And I can remove this part.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For, like, how to learn how to be a better, Photoshopper.
Yeah.
Is it good or bad to feather the selection?
So, in this case, I probably should have feathered because it adds like a nice smooth pixel. Smooth like layer, transition layer on the edge. So when I hit delete right now, we can kind of inspect it. Oh God,
No.
It's okay. We survived. I just hit escape because I just wanted to escape the command that I told it to do really quick, and it went back to having this selected. So here, I'm gonna do select inverse, and I'll hit delete on this, and we'll look at the edge really quick. That's a very good question.
Do you want to save it first so you don't have to outline all over again?
I'll just step backwards in this history. Select inverse, I'm on the right layer. That's what I wanted to make sure. So I can hit delete, and then we'll deselect for a second and zoom in. So she has like this really hard edge. Oh, it actually did seem to kind of feather. I wonder if the polygonal lasso or the magnetic lasso tool had a feather on it. No, it didn't. Oh, anti-aliasing is checked here. So it is adding that gray edge. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Oh, so was this. So anti-aliasing is almost the equivalent of adding like 1 pixel of feather. So let's zoom out and I'll step back and I'll do it with the feather and we can just compare. The feather is going to be like a softer edge. So if I choose select and mask up here, I can add the feather after I've selected. So I'll do it 2 pixels. You don't normally want to do much more than 2 because it can be like a dramatic, it'll be like a dramatic fuzziness. But here, now we'll deselect and we'll zoom in. So that's much significantly fuzzier. It's just depends on what you want. This is going to be a nice soft edge on any background we put it on, so it probably is good. Okay. Did she have legs? Whoops. We will leave the background. All right, no, I'll select your legs really quick. Shift. I'm just gonna do this rough. Very rough. Ugh. I've already inversed it. God. All right, super rough. Oh God. Okay.
We got it.
Hit delete. I'm gonna leave that space between her legs for time's sake. So now I'm just gonna grab her dress. It's gonna be a little bit easier because we've already like selected out the rest of her. So probably do select inverse and grab. So now just she's selected, so I can grab, I'll probably just do the lasso tool, and I'm holding Alt because I want to subtract this area from the selection. Just take out the rest of her. You guys could take your time and be very precise about all of this. What else? Oh, her other arm. So my favorite way to keep track of these selections now is to make a another layer and fill this layer with a color. And this is just for ease of selection. I can shut this layer off, but now, even though I've deselected, I can like easily switch to this layer and grab my magic wand tool and select everything super easy.
You could also save it.
I should save it?
No, I'm just saying that you could also save the selection.
Can you?
Yeah, if you go to select, I think it was, and then save selection all the way down.
I have never used this.
I use that all the time. It's so organized.
So if we name this white dress,
Yeah.
Where does it live now?
The channels. Yeah, if you go to select and then load.
Oh, amazing.
I didn't know that. Oh my god.
Or apparently you can go to select.
Load selection.
I want to go back to my normal channel.
And then you.
Oh. I didn't know that. So Haley just taught us something new that maybe you guys all knew. I think this is nice and straightforward, but I mean, whatever works. That actually is nice. So really quick, I am actually going to deselect here and just grab a texture that we want to use or some sort of pattern, or maybe you're inspired by like Gothic architecture or something. Wow, okay. I did not finish that, but we can grab like this image, and we could paste it in here. I'm gonna take just a second to find a better, like a larger one. So size, large. Or if you designed your own repeating pattern, you could place like a JPEG of that in here. Oh, it's a stock photo. That's okay, right? It's fine. I can barely tell. So it's gonna get cropped out, that big word. And we'll just make it a tiny bit bigger. So Control T to transform. I'm holding Shift so it scales all together. All right, so layer 2, I can like have this guy selected, and even though it's not visible, or even if the like eye is turned off, so it's really invisible, I can just like click where I know the dress is, and it'll select it, even if it's off. Or apparently we can just go to select, load selection, and like get our saved selection, which is pretty cool. So now on layer 3, I'm just gonna do Command Shift Inverse and delete it. And this looks, kind of cool, but we can make it, more transparent. So if we are on this layer, these are the transparency settings for this whole layer. So we're in the layer panel and we're like above it, where it normally says normal. And we could just lower the opacity, and that would get us there, but you can see we lose kind of the saturation. So we can play with some of these transparency settings, which are kind of set up to be a little bit better. So overlay or hue, I always have to figure out.
We use multiply a lot.
Multiply, thank you. Yeah, so multiply is pretty good. Maybe this isn't the best dress for it because it's too light. Like if we had a lot more shadows in here, but
I think multiply works better at like 70 to 80%.
yeah, so let's try doing multiply and lowering the opacity a little bit. So we're getting there. What might be better is if I actually separated this kind of one sleeve and top part from that original image, and I probably should. So I would in my own practice take the time. Now that I have this layer all selected, what's easy enough is to make it a little bit transparent. And then I can trace, I can just kind of like, sorry, I didn't do a good job there. I can trace all of this stuff really quickly. And then grab the tool, and I only have to do the interior lines, and I can just grab a different color and fill in here. So we're making like a nice, like easy to access color block layer. What would be even better is if I like separated these guys then. So now I've selected part of the blue and I don't want that, so I can subtract that blue using the magic wand tool. So Alt gives me that minus symbol next to it, and I can click on the blue and it gets rid of it. So it's a nice easy way to select, and I can fill that in a different color. Same I could do for up here. I'll do it quick. We'll just grab this guy. I know I'm kind of into this dress. So you guys would do better on all of this. I'm doing this super rough. Paint bucket tool. Grab a color. What's interesting is that illustrators use this technique if they are working in Photoshop in order to color a black and white image. They'll block out their image into these general colors first, and then they can select them, and they can really easily start coloring on just that selection. So they would grab the brush tool, and they would start adding color into like just this area, which is nice. So I watch a lot of like illustrators on YouTube just for fun, and that can like really help your practice. Anyway, we'll get this guy. We'll probably delete this area. And that area, I guess. So these will be, we'll bring them in separately really quick. So back to Google, or I might still have it in my paste actually. Yeah, I can put these areas on like a slightly different side of the garment, so the pattern like won't line up perfectly. It'll look more natural. And I can select these things and do Control Shift Inverse. It's nice to put this on the top sometimes so you can like really get an idea of, we'll do the green one first. You can really get an idea of what it's gonna look like. I'm also not talking about like the warp factor. Like we could take the time to like warp this pattern so it looks like it's like moving around her. But I'm just gonna leave it for right now, especially in this rough form that I'm doing. So we'll just select this guy now and paste and shift inverse, right? Or do I have to? Beautiful. So just turning these layers on to the multiply and lowering the opacity a little bit makes this look like some sort of dress, and it might really help support your thesis in your like collection. Gorgeous.
One thing that is probably worth mentioning is clipping masks.
Yeah, we were supposed to mention clipping masks actually.
Especially with like the warp tool, because once you start warping it, it's going to go off the figure.
Yeah, so I generally do encourage people to warp before, but let's do it really quick. So for we'll redo this center one, yeah.
I would make the argument that like if you use your clipping masks, then whether or not you warp before and after,
Yeah, I guess it matters a lot less.
Because you haven't trimmed off like material to start with.
So if we place this here, we can. He has a great point. Clipping masks are super helpful. We can place this here, and then we have the flexibility if we use a clipping mask to move it around and like get the placement afterwards. So with this guy selected, I am going to, or no, sorry, my color block layer. I'm going to rename this color block so I know which one because it's getting hard to keep track. I'm going to select that part of the dress. Okay. Back on this layer, so it's my big square layer. With this guy selected, I can come down here, and this is the clipping mask tool. It's like, looks like the Chinese flag, right? It's like a circle with, is that the Japanese? I'm terrible. I'm just a terrible person. So we can go to, you can also go to like edit clipping mask make or something like that. I might be getting it mixed up with Illustrator, but clipping mask tool, and it automatically crops it. Now, right now, if we try to click and drag on this, it is gonna move the whole clipping mask. So I just need to break this link. So wherever there's a chain, you guys should be familiar that that means that like things are linked together, whether it's proportions or in this case, like two separate little layers. So I can break that. And now when I have it selected appropriately, hold on. I have to have this, see this layer has like the little square around it. I have to have this layer have that little square around it. They're both the same layer, but this little thumbnail, I think, is the technical name for these little guys. So with that thumbnail selected, I can click and drag and try to get this placement exactly the way I want it. Maybe I want most of these guys in the front. So now, as long as this is broken, it's not linked anymore. I can always link it again. But as long as it's broken, I can go to Edit, Transform, Warp. You could also use Puppet Warp, which we've maybe touched on before. But I can start trying to get, my goal when I'm warping is generally to get these lines that go through the center or the top to kind of follow the body more. So whether that means I like kind of like a front space that's kind of flat and then the edges curve around her really dramatically and kind of crunch the image in on her. You're just trying to make it look more realistic. Great stuff. So, I mean, this is really nice because we can see what's going on. So now we can hit enter and we don't even have to like clip it after we've warped it or anything. Also an option to do that beforehand and then clip it to it or whatever. So she's looking good. Except for my like lazy selection, she looks okay. What else? What else are we going to talk about today? Let me switch back to Moodle for really quick. Just more design boards, I think. Okay, I've neglected to talk about scanning fabrics. Are you guys used to using scanners? Maybe not, right? So we'll maybe do a quick lesson on it. You can, I don't think there are instructions printed out over there, but you can scan or take pictures of your own fabrics or textures and easily apply those to these. So it's same concept, but just using your own images. So you can also use those to create fills in Photoshop. Maybe we'll touch on that in a minute, or in Illustrator we can create fills. Oh, this is last week. That's why. That's confusing. Sorry. So we've gone over the selection tools and I introduced another selection tool. I want to talk about adjustment layers. Oh, and that's good. We talked about layer masks already. Adjustment layers, you may or may not have used them. They're pretty common, but they can help you get your photographs to a point where you really like them. Like, let's say you have some sort of photograph that supports your work but isn't like quality. I don't know what kind of design board I'm making, but I'm also going to grab this image. Like, we like this image, but maybe it doesn't have like the saturated colors, or maybe it's too saturated. I'll move it down here and we'll move it to the back actually. With the adjustment layers, I can affect how this looks pretty significantly. So I prefer to use like the adjustment panel because this is going to make its own adjustment layer, and let me explain the difference really quick. So I'll just like pop this out for a second. When we use the adjustment panel, we make, like if I click this, we make a new layer. See here, this is brightness contrast layer, and we can adjust it. Where alternatively, I'll just step backwards for a second. You can also, with a object selected or layer selected, go to image adjustments, and this is going to, like if we choose brightness contrast here, it affects it, and then as soon as you hit OK, like that's it, like it's done. It doesn't make a layer. It's fairly uneditable after this. Maybe there's a panel, like a properties panel, where we could go in and like select it. But what's really nice is these adjustment levels. So I'll do a brightness contrast one, and to explain how they work, I'm just going to make it really dramatically like brighter and contrastier. So right now, this brightness and contrast layer is only applying to layer 8 here, and technically it is applying to my background, although my background is just white, so it's not doing anything to it. If I move this up, so I'm going to move it up just like a few layers, you'll see that it did start to apply to her whole look. So adjustment layers apply to everything that is below them, right? This is review, right? Yeah. If you want an adjustment layer to apply to just the object that is directly below it, like let's say, where is she herself? Let's say her image, I'm going to shut off. Let's say her image is like not great and we want to make it like brighter and contrastier, but we don't want to affect anything else. We can do that and still have the flexibility of using a layer we can always double click on these layers to edit them. So I'm double clicking not on this panel, the one to the right. This is actually its clipping mask panel. And this one is its like brightness contrast adjustment-y layer. So clipping mask thumbnail, brightness contrast. We double click on this one and we choose this little guy. So it's like a box with an arrow next to it. So this means that it is only affecting, so if I toggle that on and off, now it's only affecting her and it's not affecting the layer below her. Alternatively, as we discussed, you could apply a clipping mask to that instead. So if we really want it to apply just to her, but if we also want it to apply to like all of her layers that we've made, we can like bring this to the top, and right now it's applying everything, but we can select kind of around her really quick. Command Shift inverse. Whatever you have selected is what's going to be visible in a clipping mask. So we can come up here, and I was trying to think if it's like, if there's a way to just add, is that it? No. I think we can just hit this though. No. Sorry, I guess I don't know how to do it.
I feel like there's a thing where you can go clipping mask weight, but I don't remember where.
The thing that, like, the fact that this also has, oh, subtract mask from selection, maybe that. No pixels were selected. Okay, that's discouraging. Sorry, I thought this would be straightforward.
Well, it's because you're on the layer that's the
Yeah.
thing that there's no pixels on.
Oh, there's, yeah, I get, yeah. I might be able to delete this clipping mask and then apply it. So now with her selected, I just like dragged that thumbnail to the trash and the brightness contrast layer is still there. That's how you get rid of a clipping mask just in general. And now we can probably apply it. So that was an option. What else? The adjustments, there are, let me check for a second. I have a video here of the 19 adjustment layers in Photoshop explained. I use about 3 of them consistently. The ones I use consistently are brightness, contrast, levels, and hue/saturation. Everything else I use occasionally. If you would like to learn more about them, I have this video for you, but I don't think it's super necessary to go over them all. Let me find another picture super quick, and we will just do that as a last thing. We'll go over like hue/saturation, this guy. Move this to the back. Oops. So maybe this picture isn't the right tone. We can adjust the hue of the color overall by going to hue/saturation. And first off, I can just like up the saturation, which actually does brighten up this image. Like maybe this is like a fun Gothic architecture design board. I don't know. But we can also slide this hue scale around and oh, we've turned it into kind of like a fall look all of a sudden. Or maybe it's like a psychedelic Gothic architecture collection. But we have a lot of flexibility here. If we check off colorize down here, I'm going to turn this back to 0 for a second. If we check off colorize, we're going to have a dramatically different result. Colorize is going to try to turn every pixel into the color that you've chosen on this hue slider. So if I come over to pink without checking colorize, like the sky is kind of pink because it was white, but the rest of the image kind of keeps its color relationship. Where if I check off colorize, the whole thing turns pink. Okay? Which is kind of nice. I mean, that might be something that you want. Last adjustment layer I wanted to touch on was levels. If you have like a badly balanced photograph, all of these photographs are way too good to use levels on. Bad photograph? That's not gonna do anything. Here, we'll try making this one like more interesting. So this is kind of like a boring picture of Gothic architecture. I don't know where we would put this guy. But with the levels layer, we can kind of play. Although this is nicely balanced, maybe this isn't a good choice of photograph. But we can play with the levels in here, and what levels means is just like how much color there is in the image. So on this first preset on the RGB level, we're adjusting like all red, green, and blue colors in it. So really, it's kind of like adjusting the black and white value. So first off, if I just move this center slider one way or the other, it's going to make it significantly darker or significantly lighter. You can have a little bit more control over this than when you're using the like brightness or even the exposure button. So I'm going to double click on this again to edit it because I closed it. So if we leave that in the center, we can also take out a lot of the darks by raising this left-hand side one up. Oh no, we're adding darks that way. I get mixed up. And then we can take them out by lowering this. We can also, I'll reset these kind of affect just like the red and the green and the blue. So maybe there's too much blue in this. We can start lowering that amount here. We can do that individually on these. What I use these a lot for is photographs of my drawing illustrations where I don't have a large format scanner at home. So when I photograph things, they end up often having like shadows on them because they're like flat images. So I use the levels to like take out some of those darks or like balance out that background a little bit. I also use the dodge tool and the burn tool just as a quick review. You can rasterize this layer. Oh no, it's not. Yeah, there we go. The dodge tool lightens stuff up. So I want to lighten that roof, I can. And the burn tool darkens stuff. So like with a combination of these, I get my, sorry, that's just the dodge tool again, the burn tool. With a combination of these, I get my images looking the way I like them. So we could make all of this really dramatic and dark down here, contrasty. I just learned by going to the Ansel Adams exhibit at the MFA that dodge and burn are photography terms. They're from darkroom terms. So like when you physically make something darker in a darkroom, it's called burning it, and when you make it lighter, it's called dodging it. Burn always made sense to me, but dodge, I was interested. Of course, my photographer friend who I went with was like, yeah, duh. But anyway. Okay, so does that all make sense? Adjustment layers. Anything else that I wanted to discuss really quick? Yeah, I think we're doing pretty good. So when you are considering this client list that I'm going to give you, or your assigned clients, you should just be considering their clothing, where they are they at work, are they at home? You guys should be kind of familiar with building a design board for a specific client, but this is maybe more precise than we've done before, where we're building it for just one woman. So you're actually going to be building a profile of her for homework. You're going to make a bio for your clients. So you can get fairly creative with this and kind of add background to it to make it more interesting maybe for you. But it should still kind of relate somehow to the image that we give her. Like if we were assigned this girl, why does Google, yeah, okay, there we go. Maybe this one on the left. We would decide her age. We would decide, is she still in school or is she out of school? Where does she work? What does she do? And then build a design board based on that. I probably should have done a less kind of like topic-y design board and a more general design board. But finding other fashion images of women like her to include on your design board would be really good. She clearly likes denim. I'm trying to think of anything else to include there. We can talk about it as we hand these out. So I'm gonna have you guys pick these 18 images. No one else wandered in, so I guess we will be assigning them just and emailing them, these clients. It's wild that they're missing the crits, but we I think we're good unless you guys have any more questions. Okay, all right. Bye recording.